Hello, guys. I am Nikki Flynn, and today we are going to be talking about FERPA. So, I'm sure that you've probably heard of FERPA. It is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Here are some important things that you should know about it. Number one, it applies to all federally funded schools. So that means that it does apply to us as a public school. What it does is it gives parents and adult age children who are 18 that they have a right to all of their school educational records. And it also is a rule that anyone who tries to get access to the student records other than the parents or the adult age child, that you can deny that. It does not give individuals the right to sue the school. That is not included. And it does give parents the right to opt out for any kind of military recruitment that is happening at the school. It also gives them a right to opt out of different surveys that are given to kids at school. And it includes a complaint process, which includes hearings. So, one of the things that schools need to think about when it comes to FERPA is balancing out student privacy with school security. So, there's been a lot of questions about that recently in the news. There are some exceptions to FERPA. For example, when there is a school shooting or there is a disease outbreak, and it's important to release the student information in cases like that. That would um, be an exception to the rule. So, when it comes to FERPA, it is said that school officials may get access to the student records if they have a legitimate educational interest. So you might be thinking, who is a school official? So some of those include, of course, teachers and principals, but also some others that you might not think about, like board members, registrars, counselors, attorneys, accountants, and any support or clerical personnel. So, as long as there is an educational interest, they are allowed to get access to those records. Some examples of education records can include anything like student grades, their immunization and health records, attendance records, disciplinary records, any kind of academic or physical testing results, and even their grade point average. So, any of those things are considered education records covered under FERPA. When it comes to immigration and customs enforcement, um, FERPA does apply to that as well. So, a state may not deny the education to a child even if they are not a legal citizen, so they are still allowed to come to school. The school can ensure that the child lives in the district, though, so they can check on that, but they do not have to um, look at whether they are a citizen or not because they have a right to come to school. The school resource officers are not required to report undocumented students unless there is a threat to safety at the school. And if the Department of Homeland Security or ICE comes, they can access student information if they are looking to track whether the student is an exchange student or they're here on just a limited visa. They can access the student information for those purposes. But otherwise, they have to have a valid court order in order to get the student information. When it comes to digital privacy, which today we are using a lot more online information, there are a lot of advocates who want FERPA to be updated because we've come in contact with some different scenarios than they previously thought about because of this new digital age. And FERPA was established in 1974. So in the year 2021, um, a lot of people think that there should be some new updates. So there could be soon. Um, there are some threats to student information and privacy because of ransomware and data theft and just all of the online threats that happen when students are using technology and online. Some schools also face some privacy issues when it comes to them sharing student information with big companies. So, one of these you really have to watch is any kind of company that is exchanging some kind of product for free. They usually are doing that in exchange for getting the information from the students that are using it. Some of those even are like Google and using Google School stuff that is free for the school. Security cameras also fall under FERPA. So, one of the things that schools need to think about is that Fourth Amendment, which is the unlawful search and seizure, and make sure that they are keeping cameras in common areas, such as in buses, hallways, even stairwells. Another thing to keep in mind is the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, which says that even audio recordings cannot be used unless there is one party consent. So at least one person knows that they are being recorded. Also, any images or recordings that are taken at school of students they qualify under FERPA and are considered educational records. When you are thinking about FERPA, another thing you need to think about is destroying student education records and data. So there are some best practices that you should follow. Um, you want to make sure that if there's any kind of written agreement, that you are following that about when to destroy the information. You also need to use appropriate data deletion when you are destroying any kind of electronic records or information. And if it is tangible, you need to make sure that you are shredding it, burning it, or destroying it completely. And that goes with for any outside third party companies that you're using to destroy the data as well. Make sure that you are aware of some unintentional violations. These are things that you might do and not think about that are going against FERPA. So make sure that any kind of student records are being shred and not just thrown away in the garbage can. Schools need to think about any vendors or third party companies that they are using, especially any kind of free app. Um, don't talk about things that you've read about a student. Be careful what student records that you're sharing. Make sure that you do share with parents, but anything besides parents, you need to be careful about that. Especially sensitive information that you could be sharing in an email. Be really careful with that. And also, of course, um, don't share any kind of information about students on social media. To ensure that we're compliant with FERPA, here are some tips for schools. We need to make sure that all employees are aware of FERPA, which is what we are doing right now. We need to make sure that everyone knows that it applies to all public schools, that every school employee needs to learn, understand, and comply with FERPA. We need to make sure that we are choosing third-party vendors that also comply with FERPA. We need to conduct a yearly training, implement policies and procedures that make it easy to follow FERPA, encrypt our files and emails, and implement other prevention tools. FERPA is enforced by the U.S. Department of Education. They are committed to protecting student privacy. The Secretary of the Department of Education must enforce and investigate all violations, and they can act as an intermediary between parents and schools to help resolve any kind of complaints that are filed. As far as our Northwest Local School District Board policy, we are up to date with all FERPA laws and regulations. So if you do have any questions, make sure that you are contacting your building principal so that you can get up to date with anything that you are unsure about. Thanks a lot and have a great day.